Welcome into segment 2 of MAAC Mania's Women's Wednesday here on the MAAC Mania Podcast. Mike Duda, JJ Garcia with you. JJ, let's talk about the most recent games from Thursday, that being the 19th of February, starting it off up in Loudonville, where it was an overtime game.
It was an overtime game, but it wasn't too close of an overtime game. 61-52, Iona defeating Siena. It was grad student Isabella Middleton, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 3 steals.
That's
for
a
this Iona
double-double.
team. She has been incredible this year. We've talked about her a lot last week. We'll probably talk a lot about her this week as well.
Especially with Zoe Ward, and we'll talk about Zoe Ward, who had an incredible week as well. It's a nice little duo.
It 100% is a nice duo. And then the freshman, Kyraine Tucker for Siena, 16 points, 9 rebounds, 4 blocks. A lot of blocks. It was a block party for Tucker. But the Saints extend their losing streak to 3 games and fall to 6th in the MAAC. They're a half a game back of the Gales after this loss.
And that was after this loss. As we know from when we took a look at the standings, that got even worse, which does not help you if you are a Siena fan. Kyraine Tucker trying to step into that role of Francesca Shiro, though they don't play the same position. It's working to an extent, but losing Shiro, there's really no replacement. I do want to quickly touch upon Iona again. You got Ella Fajardo as well. Really nice squad that they got down there in New Rochelle. That's why they're rolling in so hot, at least in my opinion. And a team that is not rolling in so hot, or at least for this day, was Niagara. They lost by a sizable portion at home to the Mount, 76-57. Amber Bullard had 17 for the Mount, whereas Chastity Wilson put up 12 for Niagara. She's been a bright spot, the freshman guard, but really not too many bright spots to talk about when at this moment you still hadn't had a win the entirety of the season. With the victory, as we speak about wins, the Mountaineers punched their ticket to Atlantic City. Let's talk about another bottom of the standings matchup between Ryder and Canisius.
Yeah, Ryder Canisius. It was a very close game.
Although
it was two of the lower teams, it was a very close game. 55-53 win for Ryder. A huge win for Ryder, to say the least. Alina Cofield, 13 points, 9 rebounds. She's been incredible as just a freshman for this Ryder team. And then Franca Wittenberg for Canisius, 17 points. She's been great for them as well. The Golden Griffs lined up the right shot to tie it at the end of the game, but just came up short. The Bronx will remain alive for the postseason after this win, but it'll get interesting heading into Saturday's games.
As we saw from the standings, they are still alive to date. Cofield, as we mentioned on the first episode of MAAC Mania's Women's Wednesday, she was recruited as a Division III athlete at Arcadia University. Her head coach comes over to Ryder and says, "No, I want Cofield with me." And the two of them have stayed together, and it has proven dividends as Cofield, one of the better freshmen in this Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. Let's talk about another game that went to overtime in Poughkeepsie, 66-61. The Jaspers took care of the Red Foxes. Another game that ended by 5, so the total scoring differential is 0 points between Manhattan and Marist. The first initial matchup at Draddy Gymnasium, the Red Foxes won by 5, and then the Jaspers come into McCann and win by 5. So it all evens out, let's say. Kira Croker, who had a historic game against Manhattan on the road, had a really good performance as well in front of the home crowd on Senior Day. 17 points and 11 boards, but Agar Ferris Garcia with 13 points, 4 steals, 18 rebounds? Are you serious?
Insane. Absolutely insane.
Are you serious? Elisa Solis Sanchez, the graduate guard, dropped a season-high 23 on 5 of 11 shooting from distance, including 16 points in that first half. And as we'll speak about with Manhattan's next win, it would be a historic one as their head coach, Heather Vulin, tied the program record for most wins by a head coach with this victory on the road. However, that would change, and we'll talk about that when we get to Saturday's slate.
Yeah, it was very interesting, but another interesting game was Merrimack versus Sacred Heart. Yep. Merrimack sitting in that 3 seed, and they would stay in that spot after this game. 62-57 victory over Sacred Heart. Junior forward Madison Roman, 22 points, 9 rebounds, 6 steals. She's kind of making her way up that ranking for Player of the Year.
I know you're a big Madison Roman fan. I definitely think she will solidify at minimum an All-MAC second team.
Yes.
There's an outside shot that she gets the first team as well, and I think that's definitely possible. When you are the 3 team And I think you could disagree, but I think Madison Roman is the best player on that Merrimack squad. Maybe it's Lydia Melashenko, but I really like Madison Roman.
She's great on both ends of the floor, and when you look at her stats as well, very, very impressive. And then the junior for Sacred Heart, it was Emma Kirby, 18 points, 8 rebounds. She's been a bright spot for that Sacred Heart team, but a little lopsided game following this one.
Just about 4 miles away at Mahoney Arena, 62-30. The Stags take care of the St. Peter's Peacocks. Danae Rippey had 12 of St. Peter's 30 points to go along with 7 boards and 3 swipes. But it was sophomore roadrunner Cyan Coe who had 12 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 steals. And it was actually her teammate in Sydney Scott, the senior guard, that made history. She knocked down the Stags' 323rd triple of the season, a MAAC women's basketball record, and counting.
Insane. They are averaging 78 points per game. A huge majority is the three-pointers. Breaking the MAAC record is insane. Something else to highlight about this game, St. Peter's had 4 points at the end of the first quarter. Just insane.
4 points.
4 points at the end of the first quarter for the St. Peter's team.
4 points. For a long time, Fairfield had the NCAA lead for three-pointers made per game. We'll talk a little bit more about them when we highlight them in our storyline segment. On by was the counterpart from Connecticut in Quinnipiac. Let's take a look at Saturday's games.
Yeah, Mount St. Mary's taking on Canisius. And a big win for Canisius in overtime. They took down Mount St. Mary's 68-65.
Upset.
Very big upset alert. Kayla Lindsay, 11 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Shara Gales with 19 points and 8 rebounds for this Canisius team. What a win it was for this Canisius team.
Gales is an impressive player. Canisius already out of the playoffs, playing a little bit of spoiler, and it worked well against the Mount. And thus, it created that three-way tie that we have right now for 6th place. Had the Mount taken care of business and swept their way through Buffalo, they would have come home with the 6th seed, at least at the moment. In fact, in a tiebreaker with Sacred Heart, so a possibility to even be upwards of the 5th spot. But instead, they lost to Canisius. Fairfield Siena, another lopsided game, 81-51. It's the Stags. Come on. Cyan Coe, as we mentioned earlier, 19 points, 9 boards, and 3 swipes. Azera Gates on the Siena side, the freshman guard, had 12. Again, just trying to fill that role of Francesca Shiro, but it's not working.
It's very hard to fill that hole because that is such a major hole for the Siena team.
She was easily a lock for All-MAC first team. I think she was a lock for Rookie of the Year. We'll see how the voting ends up.
Yes.
Maybe she still gets onto the team. Maybe she still gets Rookie of the Year because she played a lot of games. But there's a possibility she doesn't make either because of this injury.
Which would be very disappointing for her with how good of a year she was having, how much she was leading the Siena team. And you see it now, especially now that she got hurt and they're on a 4-game skid. You really see how much of an impact she really had on this team.
She was that team.
She was the glue
soul of that team.
Yeah, and that's something that I think the voters should look at, is seeing how they're playing now without her and seeing kind of, oh, wow, she was such a big part to this team, and that should really mean something. I agree.
That should have some form of an impact on the voting.
100%. There's no question in my mind. Yes, she's missing the last few games, but the way she was playing, the way she was leading this team, there's no way you can't give her something. You got to give her her flowers.
I agree.
100% got to give her her flowers. A team you got to give the flowers to is Niagara.
Woo!
They are almost spoiled Riders' playoff chances. 56-52 win over Rider. Alina Cofield, 14 points, 10 rebounds. Another double-double for her. And then Kennedy Haruna, 10 points, 11 rebounds for Niagara. But, wow. Upset. I would say upset alert because this is kind of spoiling what Ryder thought was going to be a playoff push.
Of course it's an upset alert. Niagara hadn't won a game going into this one, and they take care of the Bronx, who are still fighting for that postseason bid. A lot of people thought it was over. They upset Marist on Valentine's Day, and with that, they've been alive ever since. And I wouldn't say they've been thriving, but you could argue that they are indeed thriving. They're probably going to make it to the last day of the season alive for the playoffs unless St. Peter's beats Marist and Rider loses their next game, which is to Siena. Merrimack and Manhattan at Dratty Gymnasium, and here was the historic victory. Not only does Manhattan punch a ticket to the boardwalk after a 15-point upset over Merrimack, the third best team in the conference in the standings, by 15, I might add, 82-67 at Dratty Gymnasium. But Brianna Davis tied her season high thrice. This was the third time she tied her season high of 28 points in the month of February alone. Absolutely insane. And as we mentioned earlier, Heather Vulin made history, 139 victories. That is the most ever for a Manhattan Jasper head coach.
Very truly so special for this Manhattan team. Just all around a historic day. Brianna Davis has been so good for this Manhattan team. Just a lot of history has been happening in the MAAC recently, with Fairfield being the record, Manhattan, and even Marist men's with John Dunn. Everything's just going right for the MAAC right now.
On the men's side, a couple of guys hit their 1,000th point. Jaden Winston hit it this most recent week for Manhattan men's, and Quan Hill as well for Sacred Heart men's. Ironically, both against Marist. But this is the women's podcast. We're not going to talk men's here, so let's talk about Quinnipiac Sacred Heart. This was another crazy game. A
big landslide, 55-39 against Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart, I was high on them last week, and they're kind of slipping. This allowed this slippage to happen, and Ella Ryan for Quinnipiac, 18 points. Emma Kirby for Sacred Heart, 13 points, 9 rebounds. The Pioneers' 39-point performance was their lowest offensive output in conference play this season. Just 39 points in a game. That is huge heading into the final weeks.
And Ella Ryan had 18 of her squad's 55. She's definitely a lock for the All-MAAC rookie team.
Yes.
I don't know if she'll get Rookie of the Year, but I think she's a lock for that team. In fact, you could probably name at least 4 of the 5 members to make that All-MAAC rookie team. I'm thinking Elena Cofield of Ryder, Justine Henry of Marist, Ella Ryan of Quinnipiac, and Francesca Shiro of Siena. I actually think all 4 of them are locks for that All-MAAC rookie team. So I guess really it's just a fight for one last spot, unless I'm forgetting someone that's pretty prominent. But we'll see. We'll see when those awards come out. They are coming out pretty soon because, again, we are getting really close to Atlantic City. Always a good time in the MAAC when we are nearing that tournament. Not as good of a time for St. Peter's, as JJ mentioned, on a 3-game skid, 66-55. They dropped it at Run Baby Run Arena to the visiting Gales of Iona. Zoe Ward for the Gales, a career-high 29 points and a career-high 15 rebounds.
Wild. Best way to put it, wild. Zoe Ward, so good for this Iona team. Iona is hot, ladies and gentlemen. They are cooking right now. Zoe Ward went nuclear in this game, and really a huge win for this Iona team to bump them up to that 4 seed right now.
On by was Marist, and again, we are Marist students. I like to try and preface this as much as possible on this podcast. We try to eliminate our biases as much as possible, but I feel like this is an important thing to say with Aaron Dowdy's squad on a 3-game skid. They were on the bye, but they were not off. I was actually there, and JJ was there as well for Marist water polo, and the way it works is, so there's some chairs in a opposing, not an opposing room, but in a different room, and I went to go put my jacket down in there, and I saw them practicing in there for a pretty long time. So Dowdy squad getting the work in. They want to, at minimum, clinch a postseason berth. So we'll talk a little bit about that more and how every team is faring overall and what are the big storylines in our next segment, that being the third of the day.